Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to folks all around the world who are tuning in to this LinkedIn Live from MIT Sloan Executive Education. My name is Peter Hurst. I'm the Senior Associate Dean for Executive Education at the MIT Sloan School of Management. And it is my pleasure and privilege to be your host for the next hour or so as we are joined by one of our many amazing faculty at the MIT Sloan School. Today, that person is John Davis, who is the faculty head of Family Enterprise Programs at the MIT Sloan School and a senior lecturer. And as hopefully you all know from previous LinkedIn Lives and webinars that maybe you've joined us for, or if this is your first time, we really intend that these will be very interactive sessions, an opportunity to have conversations with us, our faculty, and with each other in the LinkedIn chat stream there on the side. So we really do encourage you to say hello to each other and to us. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Feel free to post any thoughts or comments that you're inspired by the conversation that we have here with John today. Or any topics that you would like to see whether we can get to and answer any questions that you may have for John. And I'm sure there may be many that you have. So please do introduce yourselves. What's your interest or relationship to family enterprise? We'd love to see that in the comments as well. But in the meantime, let me turn to John and just reintroduce him. John, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We know that you have a lot on your plate always, and it's such a privilege always to get to hear from you about the work that you're doing in this very important space. I think everyone knows it, but by way of background, John is really, in many ways, one of the original architects of the field of studying family business and family enterprise. He has been in it for many years now. I won't embarrass him or me by how old we are. That leads to that fact. But suffice to say that John has worked with certainly hundreds, maybe thousands of companies and enterprises, both studying and researching them and helping them address the unique kinds of opportunities and challenges that they face. John teaches based on that experience for us here in the MIT Sloan School. He works with many companies, family enterprises and companies as well, still helping them with their challenges. And we are extremely fortunate, John, that you have chosen to make your home here with us at the MIT Sloan School. But one thing that you have said to me over the last several years since you joined us here was you have felt that with the increasing pace and pressures of change that are happening in the world, driven not only by technology but by sort of global economic development and a variety of megatrends, that you came to realize that the colleagues that you have here at the Sloan School at MIT are really at the center and the kind of the fulcrum of those kinds of changes, and you couldn't think of anywhere therefore better than that to bring your knowledge and your research to be able to see how in this era of just incredible pace of change, and some of those are really, maybe we'll talk about this, almost like step function changes, that we're just in a new reality, and that you found and are finding that MIT is just a great place for you to be able to bring all of those strands together. So thank you for being here with us today. I think we're going to focus on one particular kind of challenge that family enterprises are facing, but I'm sure we'll branch out a little bit too. But we're thinking about the forces of change and how that is affecting how family enterprises need to be thinking about and acting in the realm of their own longer range planning and particularly succession planning. So I'm really excited to hear what your thoughts are about that, John. And maybe just to kick us off, what are some ways that leadership succession is being affected by this new era that we're in?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Peter. And this gives me the opportunity to lay out some thoughts that have really been fundamental in my rethinking about what family enterprises, family businesses, family offices, the investment activities, the philanthropic activities, broadly called the family enterprise, how this type of system is being impacted in this new era, and also how in particular today we'll talk about how succession, meaning, and the way I'll talk about it is leadership succession. That's often the way it's usually the way it's thought of, and that's the way I'll be talking about it. And there are a lot of ways that leadership succession is being impacted. First, just a couple of prefatory comments on the new era. First, I started seeing changes, not only in society and in business life and in technology and in other ways, that were impacting clients of mine and also students of mine. Business leaders and MBA students were talking about it, and that recognition happened around 2010. That hey, something has moved. We're going into something different now. Now I didn't see it, but with the advent of AI around 2017, others said we got moved into a new industrial era where production technology driven by AI would change lots of things in business but also in society. So I've been a student of change and the ways in which the world changed. Here are the usual suspects: technology, and not just AI, not just production technology, but technology of many kinds, affects the way the world and business works, and affects the way we lead our lives, and affects the way we make our decisions, et cetera, et cetera. No one doubts that technology has a huge impact and has hugely influenced the world that we're living in right now and made it different than the world that we were living in 10 years ago. But also, geopolitics and trade, gosh, that has changed quite a bit since 2000. Since 1990 really was accelerated. And now in the Trump era, we're going to see huge realignments and changes that impact us in this new era. And then you've got all the societal and political changes that are going on in the countries around the world that are impacting the way we lead our lives, but also the one of the factors that I'm looking at right now is the influence of the big tech companies on society and on the politics of our society and other societies. Huge impacts like that. And then finally, the planetary ecosystem, which MIT, as you know, has been studying for the past 40 years. And the combination of these external factors mixed with some of the internal changes that families and business organizations have gone through, are going through, workplace changes in the culture of business organizations, changes in just the where you work, etc. And then changes within the family, hierarchical changes in the nature of the role of women, changes in how the two generations see the world. This is part and parcel of what I'm doing now at MIT, and also one of the, as you said, one of the big attractive forces of MIT, because MIT has been in the game of thinking about where things are going for over a century. And that's gotten just better and better and more powerful. Okay, now that's the new world. Few people would doubt that we've entered something new. But also, we're talking about succession. And succession has always been one of the biggest potential inflection points in the life of a family and family enterprise. You do it well, you're on a better trajectory. You do it poorly, you miss the timing, you choose wrong, you don't build a supportive enterprise for the next leader. You're on a different trajectory. So succession has always been important, and it has always been something that needs to be managed carefully, and I would say strategically. But in this new era, we're seeing some changes that have significantly changed the way you should think about succession, and then what you do about it. So let me comment on a few of the ways that I think are mattering a lot today. Number one, next generation interests. Now, since the millennials, I picked this up 15 years ago in some large survey research I was doing on millennials and business families, and noticing the shift in their career interests at that time, which has only accelerated, as evidenced by what I see in my MBA classroom, but also what we see in the Future Family Enterprise program. When you think when the next generation members in that program are talking about what their interests are, they've shifted a lot, and a lot towards entrepreneurship and investing. Now, some of my students and some of the client families that we serve, next generation, there are some next generation members that do like the traditional family business as a career for themselves. Even in those cases, they're delaying longer before going into the company, but that can be a very useful time spent. But the interests of younger people in these systems, younger family members, have shifted away. And families are struggling today, many are around the world. This is not a US feature, this is spread. Families are trying to get the attention and the engagement of next generation family members, not only to try to find one or two, maybe a few if you're in a cousin system, that could be developed in time to take leadership roles. And today, often families are saying, we don't know, given the growth of our company in this new era, that they'll get all the way to the top. So, but there's a challenge today of getting the engagement of next generations into that pipeline so that they can be developed. And one of the you see this generationally. The families have typically waited until someone in the next generation raises their hand and says, "Oh, I'm interested. I'd like a job, or I'd like to be considered in the future." And those that didn't raise their hands, well, you go over there and you maintain a more passive role, and we're going to focus on the people that have raised their hands, not only as business leaders, but as influential owners. Today, that dynamic has changed, and the senior generation needs to wake up and try to engage, bring the next generation to the table, because otherwise there are so many interesting opportunities besides the family business that they could wander away and never really come back. Just to put a pin in it, it wasn't that long ago, maybe a generation or so, that for most next generation members, there was no better career opportunity than to go into your family business. Today, that's not necessarily true. And you're exposed, young people are exposed educationally and globally to the world and to other opportunities. And parenting, which started changing in the 1970s in this respect, started moving away from recognize your responsibility to your family. Your family is the reason that you got here. Your family is the best opportunity that you've got. That message went away, or started going away, and parents started focusing on what the next generation individuals wanted and where they wanted, how they wanted to shape their lives, what they wanted to do in their careers. My job as a parent is to help you get there. So not just the external world, but the internal world of families really has gone through a shift. And one of the major things we're seeing today, not in families, but in societies too, is the rise of individualism. It's about me. It's about what I want. It's about my career, and less towards collective interests. What does my family need? What does my family want? What does my society want? So we're in a new era. It's a new era marked by shifting interests and some shifting patterns. Combine that with the fragility, the vulnerability of family companies in virtually any industry today. Industries have changed and are changing quite a bit and pretty fast. They're growing very quickly, and the growth sometimes invites in new entrants into an industry from other industries. So industries can change their character today. You see a lot more consolidation going on in industries than I've ever seen before. And this is showing up in M&A data and in other industry studies. So family companies used to be able to more easily predict that they're going to be around in 20 years. So if my son or daughter wanted a job in our family company, my way of developing them was to get them to start at the bottom and work their way up into the organization, taking the key jobs that would prepare them to be a good operator in our business, because I could predict it would probably be around. Well, in today's world, you can't do that. Your son or daughter is interested in your family company, but it'll take them 15 or more years to get up into the hierarchy if they're good. And the business has gotten more complex and bigger since you learned to run it. And now, but will it even be here? Or can they even, given the complexity and growth of this business, make it up the chain to be good leaders in the future? That now is in question because of the growth of businesses, because of the changing in their industries, and families might each generation think about, do we want to keep the business? Is it time to sell? Now, because of how fast things are moving and how quickly one's industry can grow and change, families are needing to think about do we keep this business or sell it or partner or merge so we can stay relevant in our industry much more than they've ever had to do that. I see families doing this now at least once every several years, taking a look a step back and thinking, can we hang in there? Now, all of these changes impact the career and career planning for the next gen. All of this does. It affects their views. Is it worth it for me to go into that business? But it affects the family's views. Are we going to be here long enough to make it worthwhile for them to learn this business? And if not, what do we prepare them for? Well, I've got an answer to that too. Because one of the things that I've seen over these, and this is where, Peter, it helps to be around looking at something for 40 years and to see how it's changing and to see how it's developing. But one of the things that I've seen is that the family businesses that have stayed successful over generations typically have made the right ownership bets. They chose the right leaders. They invested in the right products and services and new technology, et cetera, at the right time. They developed a governance system that helped them guide the company and keep a sense of discipline, not only in the company, but in the family. They also were able to prepare next generations, which is the owner's responsibility, to have a pool of talent. But it was the owner decisions, not the operator decisions, that were most fundamental in keeping long-term success. Well, in today's world, if with so much unpredictability, you must start training your next gens to think like owners. And so the shift of interest into investing and entrepreneurship and value creation, you ask, well, is that a plus or a minus? Well, it could be a minus for some companies, but for some other family companies, it might be coming along at just the right time. Because what families increasingly need to be good at are those things. How do we invest? How do we grow value? What's our next big move? And the next generational shift in interest there could actually be a way to help the families stay relevant and stay active in some business or business activities. Now, I'll mention one last thing, and then I'm going to turn back to you. And this is the last thing I'll say. The generations have different expectations about when to hand off responsibilities. Longevity has increased pretty enormously, and leaders are now thinking about staying until their mid to late 70s, whereas before, maybe even later, I've got a couple of 80-year-old business clients who are plenty bright, plenty smart, energetic, in touch, and they love being in the game. And whereas in earlier generations, men and women, if women were leading, would retire around 65, 70, and they wouldn't live that much longer after they retired. And so there was a more natural turnover in leadership opportunities and also ownership authority in previous generations. What's happened today, all of that is getting stretched out. Whereas in younger generations, they expect millennials, Zs, they expect things earlier. They expect to be part of strategic conversations earlier. They expect to have some leadership authority earlier. And surveys that we've done show they even expect to get ownership and significant ownership earlier than previous generations expected. So compare the two sets of expectations. Older generation want to stretch it out. Younger generation want it earlier. And now what you've got are many more, um, many more situations where there's no natural period where both generations can be satisfied or more satisfied. And we have to be more creative about responsibilities and with authority that we can give younger generation members to keep them in the saddle, working with the family and growing value, and patient while the senior generation steps aside. So, in general, has succession been impacted by the new era that we're in? Oh, yeah, in several important ways. And families, their advisors, the educators who are listening to this today, we have to get ready and prepared in new ways. We have to develop people, younger people, as owners, because that may be their most important role. We have to learn to develop people, give them enough experience inside organizations, but enough training outside their organization so that if that business goes, they still have useful ways to contribute. And finally, we have to be thinking beyond family to family succession. Businesses are transitioning now within generations. The businesses are growing so fast and so much faster than in previous generations that it may be very difficult for most family members to learn enough to grow and or to lead their business in the future as an executive. So we need to really be thinking much more about non-family executives, how to develop them, how to keep them close to the family, and how to partner with them so that they have some of the same commitments that family members do and can lead businesses that in a long-term way as a family member would. So I'm going to stop with that long explanation. And what do you think, or what additional questions do you or others have for me?
Well, thank you, John. This is fascinating. And let me encourage people, if they have questions or comments, to put them in the thread on the LinkedIn Live event page. But if I could just follow up, I mean, thank you. That was a very comprehensive kind of thesis about what we've been seeing going on and what is really happening now. One thing that really stood out for me as you were describing that was, you and I have talked before about the need that you've seen for the generation that's currently leading family enterprises to shift from an operator mindset to an owner mindset. But I take from those conversations the fact that, that's still a challenge for many families and for the leaders of their current businesses. So that said, I think what you're describing is maybe in past generations when it was an operator developing up another operator, then they kind of had the skills and the credibility to do that. Are you finding that the generation, maybe they're the founders, second, third generation, but are leading still with an operator mindset, are equipped to bring the next generation up with an ownership mindset when those leaders themselves are still early in that transition?
Yeah, thank you. My answer to that is, that's one of the big challenges that companies that have stayed around needed at some point to make owner level decisions. Do we diversify? Do we invest in this new technology? They had to get out of their just pure operator point of view and get up there to the owner level and say, is this worth it? Or how do we, and who do we choose for our next leader? That's another big one. So families that have stayed around, they would make one, two, maybe a few owner level choices in a generation. In today's world, owner level choices, not operator level choices, they're floating up to the owners more and more frequently. You know, do we diversify? Do we invest here? Do we change this? Do we sell that? Do we? These kinds of decisions are coming up much more. So we do need to train our family members to be good owners. And some of them need to be trained to think like owners, to have that owner mindset. Not everybody in the family will. Not everybody in the family needs to get up there. But then how do you if that hasn't been your history, as you're saying, how do you change it? Well, some of it has to happen with outside experience. I am a strong believer today more than probably ever before that even if you're interested in going back into the family business, you're going to spend at least a few years, maybe more, in a job, in a profession where you think more broadly than just operations, where you think about, like for example, in investment banking or in an investment firm where the object is to think about future value and to get that wired here so you carry that back to your family business. And those kinds of jobs, after enough education so that you have some way of getting that job, but also ways of thinking about business more broadly, as we encourage here at MIT, that kind of bigger focus and value growing focus, hopefully you're gonna take that back to your family and your business and their business and think in that way as you're trying to contribute. Now, what else can help? Well, preparing the next generation to be active on the board and to be a good strategic thinking board member is also very critical, because as these companies grow and as we're probably going to become more reliant on non-family executives, we're going to need family members in the board who think like an owner but understand our business and understand how to not only guide management but to help the ownership group make the right big decisions at the right time. So board training, owner training, um, all very important. And part of the education that I'm trying to build into my MBA course is to alert my MBA students, many of whom are interested in at least being on the board of their company, what allows a family business to succeed and last? What allows a family to continue in business, either in that original business or in some other activities over time? Get the big picture about what leads to success, and then think about how you can develop more of the owner level decision making skills that you're going to be faced with. I hope that was responsive.
Yes, thank you. And in the moment, I'd like to move on to something else, which you said that was quite stunning to me to hear. But before that, I see that in the threads here, Michael Evans was asking, he was picking up on what you were talking about here. What advice are you giving families on how to balance the responsibility to take over family businesses with those individuals needing to grow and establish themselves in their own merits as well? both, for their own, let me add to that, for their own fulfillment as well as for their capabilities to be able to contribute to the family business at the appropriate time.
Yeah. Well, and thank you, Michael, for that. Look, I think that parents helping their children be the best person they can be is part of the job and part of the joy of parenting. But there's nothing in conflict if you say as well, if you want to be an artist, or if you want to be an architect, or if you want, don't be a professor, but if you want to be anything that is really additive to life and that's your joy, I want you to do that. But don't forget your responsibility to your family. I didn't say family business, to your family. Now, so if I'm an architect, can I still help my family that owns a business? Well, yes, I can. I can be a good family member. I can be a good owner in the future. I can also maybe develop myself in certain ways so that I can help in family governance. Or maybe I'll be able to sit on the board one day if I learn the right things so be what you want to be in your life. That's important. But you can still help your family in various ways. And you just need to figure out, what ways can I be of help to my family? Not everybody is destined to go into the family business. Not everybody should go into the family business. But if you don't, there are other ways you can help your family. I know family members that say, look, I'm not interested in business. I don't have the training. I don't have the experience, but I'm very interested in philanthropy. Can I help there? Or can I help with family governance? Can I help organize family meetings? Or can I help my family by taking some responsibilities in the community where we live? It helps. It's something I would love to do, but also it helps the reputation and the goodwill of my family. So yeah, I mean, there are lots of ways one can do both. I hope, Michael, that was helpful.
Thank you. Yes, and there's some good conversation and comments happening in the threads as well as around this topic, and I think I'm seeing quite a lot of agreement with your thesis there. The thing that you said, just going back in your remarks earlier, that pricked my ears up was that you were, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, advising families that as they're thinking of family leaders, as they're thinking about succession planning from the point of view of the leadership and management of their business or their business portfolio, that then traditionally, I think my mental model has been the succession is always a keeping it in the family kind of challenge, and that in itself has got the kinds of challenges that you've been describing. But I think I heard you say that maybe your succession plan could be outside the family. Where the family moves into an ownership role and the management and leadership of the business or the portfolio is something that could become professionalized. Could you say more about what you're seeing about that kind of trend?
Yeah, precisely. Thank you. Businesses today that last will almost invariably need to grow, need to become more complex, and step up their management skills. And again, a family member coming up in that business may be able to gain enough experience to be the right executive CEO leading the business in the future. When businesses didn't grow as much, when industries didn't change as much, it was more likely that you could count on a family member getting there and being qualified to lead into the next generation. Today, you can't be as confident of that happening. And you need lots of good executive talent and experience to guide a bigger, complex business in a quickly changing industry. So you don't have the latitude of chancing it on a family member that you don't think is prepared or capable. And families need to think more openly about passing executive roles to non-family executives. Too much in the past, families have kind of cordoned off too many of the top roles in a business and said those will go to family, creating virtually a caste system between family and non-family. That's done. That is not a practice that you should drag into the future or try to, because it won't work. And if you're going to need more non-family executive talent, learn to partner with these people. Learn for family and non-family members to partner, be on the same team, be in the same tribe, I like to say. And family will still be in the ownership positions. Family will still have some important board roles. If you have a holding company, family members are more likely with good outside experience to qualify for one of those roles. But yeah, open it up. Start thinking more broadly and not just at the last minute or in the last year. Oh, my daughter isn't qualified. Is there a non-family executive who would be? No, don't do it just then. Start thinking 10 years before that transition needs to happen, because you're going to need time to develop people and partner with people and make sure they've got the right values and make sure that they're aligned with the long-term aspirations of the family. All of those things take time. I'll stop there.
Great. No, thank you. I think that we'll get a lot more questions about that topic. It seems to be a very energizing kind of question. But I was also struck by something that you talked about or touched on. Maybe you could drill a bit more into. I think most of us assume that sort of the primary responsibility for succession planning, lies with the current leader of the business or the enterprise.
Mm.
And yeah, I think I just heard you say that it's really important to engage a much broader constituency in the succession planning thinking, as well
Yeah.
as the process. Whether that's a family board or other kinds of stakeholders. Could you explain that a little more and just dive into what you're seeing happening in that regard?
Sure. I think that probably when you're choosing your next business leader, the next CEO, no voice matters more typically than the outgoing CEO. And that person will hopefully not only be very observant of how the world and how the world is changing and how the business needs to change. So they're not thinking that the next person is just going to do the same job that I've done. Hopefully the outgoing person will see the changes necessary and understand, and this takes a very mature person, understand that what the profile of the next person to lead the company is probably going to be different than me. If we cloned another one of me, I like to say, and a lot of families would try that, it would be a bad choice, because this profile was good for a while, but it's not the right profile going forward. So how do you understand what the right profile really is? Well, it takes different points of view, not just mine, because I'm kind of as expansive as I can think I am. I've got some limitations too. And we need to develop a group. Sometimes it's the board, sometimes it's a succession committee within the board that might even include one or more people from the outside that really thinks about, and we've done this with companies, so we have practical experience in this process. And you start that conversation a few years before ideally, before the transition is expected to happen. So people have a chance to get ready, and you have a chance to have the right conversations and debate, etc. It's not forced, it evolves. And you put different people in that group, that thinking, exercise about where are things going, what do we need as a company, what does that role need to encompass, and then you develop and profile, and you see who fits. Very often, candidates within your company will fit to some extent, but not with everything that you think you need. Candidates from outside the company, people that you could hire from other businesses, let's say, would fit with some of the qualifications, but not others. So then you start thinking about what's the core of what we need here. If we have 3 or 4 people that might fit here, what are we really looking for? And then you also look for who will the owners support and who will at least the management, if not the employee group, support. And so it's a complex calculation that you're making, predicting into the future, which we all know is pretty fuzzy these days. And but it almost always is improved when you go beyond the current leader and his or her opinion.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you. And just sort of staying somewhat on that topic, but also bringing in, as you were talking about there, the idea of sort of intergenerational partnering in these processes.
Yeah.
Can we turn to some of the work that you do here at the Sloan School, particularly in executive education, and could you perhaps explain how what you're doing with us here is helping both that intergenerational sort of dialogue and planning, and also how different families can learn from each other and their own, each other's experiences as well.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you bring that sort of to life in your work at MIT?
Thanks. Well, this is the real intent of the Future Family Enterprise Program, that you invite in teams of family members. Usually they're around 4 people, but we've had up to 9 or even 10, and those teams most often are composed of 2 generations. Members from 2 different generations. And often they're not all working in the business. Some do, some don't, some are owners, some aren't. So each team can look a little different, but the intent of the Future Family Enterprise Program is dialogue around key issues, and to create an environment where these 10 families inside the classroom, they're active in conversation. So you're learning from different families during the week of the program. But then every day, each family goes into a private conference room with a coach, and they talk about their agenda, their issues, their plans. And the goal of that process over that week is to come out of it with an action plan, but an action plan that's woven together through dialogue, and where you're listening to the point of view not just my generation, but the next one. And not just the managers in the firm, but the family members who aren't. And it's remarkable what families that are encouraged and given a safe space in which to talk about these things, because some of these issues are sensitive and maybe a little intimidating to broach. But once you do, you make a lot of progress. And families will say, we learned a lot. We understand long-term success better now. We understand the dynamics of succession and governance and We understand. Thank you very much, Professor. But what we really got out of this is that we talked and we heard each other, and we're better aligned now about what to do. And so it's that part of what you're in these complex systems, there are a lot of different voices. In any family, there are different voices. And if you want to think together as a family or think together as an ownership group, you have to be willing and interested to hear the other voices and to create something that you can build consensus around. So that's the process of the program. And I like to say that the process of this program is every bit as important as the content of the program. The content opens your mind, gives you something important to think about, gives you something to say, yeah, that answers it for me. Okay, thank you very much. But then the real work is within the families.
Great, thank you. And I know focusing on this particular course, as you just introduced that, you have a very careful and thoughtful process that you go with to prepare families who are considering joining a program like this. Could you say a little bit more about kind of what that process looks like? And in fact, if anybody is interested in joining you at MIT, where should they start?
Well, I think that there can be any number of really good questions to ask about how this program works or how my family would fit or who I should bring to the program. So you can go online, you can read about the program. But if you want to learn about the program, I and my colleagues who teach with me would get on a Zoom with you right away and start talking with you about it, because it's we offer this program in April for a week and October for a week. April is closed. The programs are filling quickly now, months in advance. So you want to start the process early. I would say, number one, read about it, send me an email, or be in touch with our MIT, that the people that will register you for the program, and indicate to them that I'd like to talk with somebody about the program, and we can be on a Zoom or Teams call within minutes, well, maybe within days, and answer your questions, because then you're going to have to get people organized and scheduled and enrolled, etc. We will help you with every step of that. But it's good to check it out and see what the program is really like, and what do you talk about in this class and that class, and so we'll talk with you about that.
And do you primarily find, when you're having those conversations, that you're talking to someone at the senior level of leadership in the family? Is it the next generation who's reaching out to you and saying, hey, can you help us because this is about our future? Is it the people who work in family businesses or family offices, or their advisors, or all of the above that you find?
Yeah. The initial point of contact is any and all of the above. And almost always before a family signs on, we'll talk with one of the senior generation members who probably are going to write the check to MIT for the program. But the early conversations or the early points of interest are anybody. And I think for this last program, we probably had conversations with all of those different types of individuals. Next generation, senior generation, managers, board members, family office managers. It was quite a, but each of these people can see a reason why my family would benefit if we did this. It's time. We have to talk about some things. We have to really start thinking about, the next gen or where this business is going. We've had some families say to us, when we came to the program, we were kind of the opinion that maybe it was time to sell and just stop this multi-generational effort. And they left the program and it re-energized them, and particularly the next generation, and they're rebuilding. So we've these conversations at the right time really matter and really help, not just the business and the wealth creation of your family, but the family. Talking, it's like, duh, but talking about the important stuff really matters. And it's one of the foundation stones of long-term success. And there's no substituting for talking. You got to talk if you want to keep this thing going.
Great, thank you, John. I think that's perhaps a good point for us to pause. You've been so generous with your time already, but I also felt like that was a very positive and action-oriented note to end on as well. That you're really offering out. Look, there are, if you're challenged by the kinds of things that John is talking about, and or that you're seeing happening in the world, and concerned about what that means for your family, for your family enterprise, you can stay in charge and be proactive and actually be part of plotting your own course into that future, whichever generation you are. So thank you, John, for giving us that ray of hope and ideas for things that we can proactively do to
pleasure,
respond to what's going on in the world and make sure that our family can continue to be successful for generations to come. I really appreciate your time. On behalf of everyone that's been tuning in and listening to you, I always learn a lot from our conversations, and I know everyone else listening does as well.
You're nice to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, whether you're here live or watching the recording. And as John mentioned, if you're interested in learning more about his work here at MIT and the courses that he offers through MIT Sloan Executive Education, we're showing the link on the screen right now, executive.mit.edu/FAM. And I think we had the email address up as well. That's also on the website, but execedfam@mit.edu if you'd like to start a conversation with John and his team. So thank you all again. This has been a LinkedIn Live from MIT Sloan Executive Education. And keep an eye out on our website, everyone, please, for future opportunities to talk to John and other colleagues and our brilliant faculty at the MIT Sloan School. But for now, let me wish everyone well and great success in all of these ventures that we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.